Have you ever felt like you're running out of time? Because you are. We all are. I turned 20 this past year. I'm not old by any means, but I'm not a kid anymore. And more than ever, I feel like I'm running out of time. I know I'm not the only one. Running out of time to succeed, to do the things I want to do, to figure things out. But it's not just that. The world itself is speeding up, turning faster, changing every second. As a writer, and as a human being with a finite time on Earth, I've always been drawn to questions about time. How can it be manipulated in fiction? Is memory ever a window into the past as it was, or only an imagined version? And most importantly, how can we best use our limited time? It's these ideas that I'm grappling with in my fiction, and that I want to explore in this video. For the past 5 years, I've been writing a dark sci-fi novel called Catalyst of Control, about an arms race to develop mind control. In the book, there's an algorithm run by a supercomputer predicting how much time is left before mind control technology is finally perfected and used to irrevocably alter world events. It's called the Cataclysm Countdown. Every one of us has a countdown, except it's one we can't see, can't predict. We can only dream and worry and guess how much time remains. The countdown ticks on. There's nothing we can do to change that. What we can change is how we understand time, how we use it, and even how we experience it. We're all running out of time. So what should we do about it? When we're young, we have a different relationship with time, usually a friendlier one. As a kid, I had only a vague notion of death and aging and the ephemerality of my existence. The world was new and vast, endless even. So, it seemed, was I. I fell in love with books as soon as I could read them. Reading made the world more expansive. Through fiction, I could live hundreds of lives, visit universes outside our own, travel backward and forward in time. Words were a passageway to the infinite, to spaces where temporal limits no longer applied. The magic of these books inspired me to start writing fiction of my own. Back then, it was a simple thing. Worlds and characters and stories emerged unbidden from my imagination. I had only to capture them on the page. I could lose myself in writing, unmoor myself from the boundaries of time and age. I could become anyone. I could invent centuries of history without having lived for a single decade. I don't remember whether I had ambitions of making a career out of writing at such a young age. I doubt I gave it much thought. I do know that by the time I was a teenager, I'd started to feel the pressure of time. I knew I wanted to do great things, and I knew I had a limited amount of time to do them. I've always been artistically ambitious. It may be my greatest strength, it's definitely my greatest weakness. As a kid, I was always aiming higher than I could hit. I tried to make epic sci-fi blockbusters with a $0 budget. I tried to write grand stories with deep philosophical themes as a preteen. You could attribute some of this to the precocity of youth, but a substantial driver of my artistic ambition has always been impatience. The feeling that I'm running out of time, and I can't leave anything on the table when that countdown reaches its end. I can't wait until I have the budgets or the audience or the skills. I have to make my dreams a reality now, before it's too late. I don't know how much longer I'll have the chance. Perhaps you can relate. I also knew that my youth set me apart in some sense. I wasn't just a novelist, but a kid novelist. Arguably much more interesting. That's not to say there weren't downsides to being a young writer. For instance, while my age generated curiosity, that curiosity was almost certainly accompanied in most cases by skepticism. Reasonable skepticism about the quality of my writing. But in a crowded marketplace, any point of differentiation, especially one as significant as being a kid in an industry dominated by older writers, can be an invaluable asset, and I had a limited amount of time to capitalize on it. 2019, the year I turned 14, was one of my most creatively productive years. I released 3 short films, 11 singles and an album, a dozen episodes of a new podcast, and a novel. I traveled, launched a membership site, and attended entrepreneurial markets for kids. I had big plans for the future. Funny thing about life, it doesn't tend to care about your plans. The pandemic changed the world the following year, and also changed the way many of us perceived time. It certainly did for me. When you're not visiting new places, meeting new people, the days seem to slip by in an undifferentiated blur. I started daily journaling during this time. Writing what was happening only emphasized how little was actually happening. It was a strange time to grow up. Ostensibly, I had more time than ever to dedicate to creative projects, yet the spark was all but gone. It was during this time that I started writing my 9th novel, Catalyst of Control. Given my established cadence of writing 1 novel every year, I expected it would be done in about 12 months. It was not. Years passed. I wrote 3 novellas, but didn't finish the first draft of Catalyst of Control until 5 years and 24 days after I started. There's a multiplicity of reasons this book was an outlier, but that's a story for another time. As year after year passed with the novel unfinished, this feeling of running out of time only grew stronger. Which brings us to now. I turned 20 not very long ago. It's just a number, of course. Nothing really changes when you enter your 20s. Yet symbolically, it's monumental. Your life as a teenager, as a kid, is officially behind you, set in stone, only visible through those unreliable lenses of retrospection we call memory and artifact. Being young, a young writer, a young actor, a young filmmaker, used to be a defining part of my identity. Now it's slipping away. Writing a novel is impressive if you're 7, even if it doesn't succeed. Writing a novel in your 20s is less impressive. 20 is still young, relatively speaking, but this milestone is undeniably a sign of time running out. You'll never be this young again. This is true every day, every minute, of course, but it's made starkly apparent on certain occasions. There's a lot of hype, expectation, and mythology built up around certain periods of life. Your 20s in particular are supposed to be X, Y, and Z. It's the superlative decade, the best years of your life, or the most important. There's a cultural pressure to make the most of this time before it's gone, like it's a golden shaft of sunlight that crosses your path once in a lifetime. Youth is a precious currency, and it must be invested wisely. The stakes are high. And I agree with this, at least on its face. No matter how wealthy or enlightened you become, you'll never be able to reverse time. Generally speaking, your 20s are when your health is at its natural peak, your responsibilities less burdensome than later in life, your vivacity and capacity for risk unmatched. There's an imperative to make the most of this time. It comes only once. The feeling of time running out, or the feeling of falling behind in life, is near ubiquitous in my generation. Thanks to such things as the internet, we have more opportunity and potential to succeed than any previous generation. To not fully capitalize on that every day seems wasteful, irresponsible, wrong. If you haven't started 5 companies and made $1 million by 20, you're doing something wrong, or so you're led to believe. There are so many examples, far more readily available than ever before, of young people having astronomical success. Artists going viral with little more than a phone and raw talent. Online creators building a following of millions from their bedroom. Entrepreneurs starting successful businesses before they're old enough to drive. Social media is the world's most effective comparison machine. In a sense, we're not just comparing ourselves to other individuals, or even a small group of peers. We're comparing ourselves to the collective of everyone we see online, the aggregate successes and achievements and highlights of a global user base. This comparison compounds the feeling of running out of time. Look at all these people. Look at what they've done, where they've been, how far they've gotten. You have to catch up. Some people tell me after learning about the novels I've written, or my acting career, or my filmmaking, or my videos, that I'm accomplished. When I hear that, I have to resist the urge to laugh, because it doesn't feel like it, at all. I feel like I'm behind. And when I talk to people whom I see as far ahead of me, they'll often say the same thing. Because no matter how much you accomplish, if you're still comparing yourself to the people ahead of you, you'll always feel behind. This comparison, the sense of inadequacy, can consume anyone. It's consumed many of the most objectively successful people in the world. If even they feel like they're running out of time, then achievement can't be the cure. Time runs out for everyone, and as long as you're trapped in comparison, there will never be enough of it. Even if you have a lot of time left in life, you're running out of that precious commodity called youth. Modern society has an obsession with youth. We want to stay young forever. We idolize people who achieve success young. In his book, Keep Going, Austin Kleon shares a perspective that runs counter to the prevailing view. Our culture mostly celebrates early successes, the people who bloom fast. But those people often wither as quickly as they bloom. It's for this reason that I ignore every 35 under 35 list published. I'm not interested in annuals. I'm interested in perennials. I only want to read the 8 over 80 lists. I think this is a much healthier way of looking at things, caring less about youth and early success and more about long-term growth. The longer it takes to become successful, the deeper your roots will be. You'll be equipped with the experience and maturity to handle it well, unlike many who rocket to great heights early on. Adopting this mindset and sticking to it, though, is easier said than done. I'm playing a long game as a writer. I'm fully aware that making a successful career out of this work can take years, even decades. This is not, except for those lucky few, one of those industries where you can catapult yourself to the top in short order with a few strategic moves. Writing and publishing are slow, and rarely pay off immediately. But knowing this doesn't make it any more bearable. At least not by much. You still see those overnight success stories. Wonder if, against all odds, you could be one of them too. There's also a cultural dimension to our view of time. I've grown up in America. Not just America, but New York City, the capital of capitalism, the city that never sleeps, where speed walking is walking and walking is standing still. I've been immersed, for better and for worse, in a climate of ambition and hustle and the endless pursuit of more. Here, a person's worth is measured largely by their economic output, their achievements, their wealth. In other words, how much value they can squeeze out of their time. If we're looking at this competitively, the playing field is far from level. Many of the world's most productive and creative people are able to do so much only because they're far along enough in life, especially financially, to outsource most of the time-consuming trivialities and responsibilities the rest of us have to deal with ourselves. I'm not even a full-fledged adult with bills to pay, much less with a family of my own, but managing life and staying on top of its endless supply of tasks can feel like a full-time job sometimes. You might think that this feeling of time running out would make me incredibly productive. If only it did. Oftentimes, I instead feel paralyzed. What's the point of creating anything if everything is ephemeral? I don't believe that the transience of art or life renders it meaningless, but sometimes it does feel that way. Knowing that you're running out of time can provide a certain clarity, but that clarity, taken to an extreme, can backfire. When time is so precious and limited, committing to any time-consuming project, writing a novel, making a film, even reading a book, can feel like a high-stakes decision. If it fails, if your novel sucks, or your film bombs, or the book is a disappointment, you've lost time you can never get back. So instead of daring to try and risking failure, you wait for the perfect idea to come along. In trying to avoid wasting your time, you end up wasting your time. You've mitigated the risk of failure, but what do you have to show for it? This, as any experienced artist will tell you, is a terrible way of doing things. But it can happen when we're faced with uncertainty, when the only thing we know about our time is that it's running out. The present is the only time we have, insofar as it can even be said we have time at all. It's not something we can hold, stop, bend to our will. A more accurate description might be that the present is the only time we can experience firsthand, and the only time we can do anything with. The past, however we may change our perspective or retelling of it, is unchangeable. The future, however we may predict or fear it, is unreachable. And yet, despite this self-evident fact, most of us have a remarkably hard time living in the present. We obsess over the past, we fixate on the future. This isn't merely an individual behavior, but a widespread way of being. So much of marketing, entertainment, and style relies on nostalgia, or an imagined era to come. We're conditioned to crave time we can't have, an idealized past or a perfect future. We focus on everything but the here and now. And so the present flies by and becomes the untouchable past, and we're left wondering where all the time went. When you think about the future, what do you feel? Hope? Fear? For me, and I think many of my contemporaries, the future is something I regard with apprehension. That's on a good day. The rapid rate of technological and cultural development in recent years has added to the sense of time running faster than we can keep up. I've seen more change in my 20 years on Earth than most humans historically would have seen in several lifetimes. On one level, this is extraordinarily exciting, especially as someone who's passionate about technology and the arts. Creativity has been revolutionized by successive breakthroughs in the past few decades. Tools like cameras and computers have gone from the realm of science fiction to professional environments to our own pockets. It's a wild time to be alive, that's for sure. But needless to say, it's not all good news, especially for anyone who cares about art, or the environment, or privacy, or democracy, or the very concept of truth. The future isn't looking all too welcoming. As a writer, actor, and filmmaker, I've never been under any illusions about how difficult it is to make a career in the arts. But in recent years, developments like social media and AI have posed new challenges. As these technologies continue to grow more powerful, eating more and more of humanity's collective attention, it can feel like I'm in a race to establish myself before it's too late. The foundations of creative industries are crumbling, and I've barely had a chance to find a foothold. I used to look forward to the future. Now, more and more, I find myself dreading what lies ahead. Recently, as I was thinking about all this, I read a letter about time written by the Roman philosopher Seneca. Several passages jumped out to me. This was one of them. Can there be anything sillier than the view of those people who boast of their foresight? They are too busily preoccupied with efforts to live better. They plan out their lives at the expense of life itself. They form their purposes with the distant future in mind. Yet the greatest waste of life lies in postponement. It robs us of each day in turn, and snatches away the present by promising the future. The greatest impediment to living is expectancy, which relies on tomorrow and wastes today. You map out what is in fortune's hand, but let slip what's in your own hand. What are you aiming at? What's your goal? All that's to come lies in uncertainty. Live right now. I still think about the future, probably more than I should, but ultimately, it's out of my control. We can predict and plan all we like, but the only time we know we have is happening right now. It's what we do with the present that shapes the future, not our dreams and fears. In trying to come to a deeper understanding of time, I found myself looking to the past, to ancient writers and thinkers like Seneca. Time, after all, is a constant, something we as humans have been dealing with as long as we've been around. Reading what philosophers from thousands of years ago wrote about time is eye-opening, both because they touch upon profound truths and because of how their words show just how little has changed. You may think your problems with time management are unique. You may think this feeling of running out of time is a modern phenomenon. But read these ancient texts and you'll see just how universal, just how timeless these experiences are. People have different perspectives on time, and it's not always correlated with their age. Sometimes the people with the least time left worry less about time than those who seemingly have their whole lives ahead of them. Those who've already lived for decades have that time guaranteed. In retrospect, any worries from their youth about time running out seem wholly unjustified. But it's only in retrospect that we have any idea how much time we really have. So while there is certainly some merit to the advice the old give the young, reassurances about life being long, appeals to slow down and enjoy the ride, there's also a fundamental disconnect. That advice is only relevant and useful if the recipient's life does turn out to be long and relatively free, which is more likely than not, but it's never guaranteed. That inherent uncertainty, the knowledge that any day could be your last for reasons almost entirely outside your control, can make such advice feel naive and unhelpful. If we could see the countdown clock for our lives, we would almost certainly start living differently, whether because we know we have a long time left, or we know we don't. Seneca compares time management to financial management as a way of pointing out how nearly impossible it is. And yet it's easy to manage an amount, however small, which is clearly defined. We have to be more careful in conserving an amount that may give out at any time. It's easy to manage your money when you know exactly how much of it you have. It's not so easy to manage your time since you can't know how much of it you have. I would make very different decisions if I knew I had 6 months to live than I would if I knew I had 60 years left. Making the right choices in how we manage our time would be difficult enough if we knew just how much time was left in that countdown. Our lack of knowledge makes those choices more complicated, to say the least. I've had a few moments in my life where I thought there was a serious chance I might die. Clearly I was wrong, thankfully. Those moments, as you might imagine, can be very effective wake-up calls. I've written before about the idea of memento mori, reminding ourselves, or being reminded by forces outside our control, that our lives will end someday. It puts things into perspective, and starkly illuminates how trivial most of our concerns about time really are. People, younger people especially, tend to have an irrational view of their own mortality. Sometimes it takes a slap in the face from life to be reminded that none of us, in fact, are invulnerable. Quite the opposite. It's easy to take health, a long life, even existence itself for granted, but none of these things is guaranteed, which is why the concept of memento mori is so important. What I don't see a lot of people talking about is what happens when you take it too far. I regularly think about how short life is and the fact that I could die soon. I feel like I have to achieve everything I want in life by 30 or sooner because of some impending unknown disaster. Maybe it's AI or climate change or nuclear war. Maybe it's a car crash. The thought runs through my head often. I'm running out of time. Make every second count. It's not a great feeling. There's a certain desperation it stirs up, which can be useful if harnessed and put to productive ends, but otherwise only leads to fear and paralysis. People talk about the weight of time as an older person, the knowledge that you'll never be young again, or your best days may be behind you, or you feel like life has passed in a flash. Far more rarely do people talk about the weight of time as a young person, the fear that you may never live to be old, or you'll never taste life's most meaningful experiences, or you'll waste your years of peak health and energy on things you come to regret. Maybe it's not as universal. Teenagers aren't exactly known for their long-term thinking and introspection, but it's a pressure, a low-level anxiety I feel almost constantly. Humans are such frail creatures. All it takes is one drunk driver, a bad mutation, an accident, for us to go from being to not. Point is, life feels terrifyingly tenuous. I want to be okay with that. It's not like I can protect myself from all the random dangers life throws at you. It would be nice to live without constantly thinking about the fact that everything you're experiencing is fleeting, and so are you, and one day in the not too distant future, you and everyone you love and everything you know will all be gone. It's just not a fun way to move through life. As much as I want to reach a state where I'm at peace with the finitude and uncertainty of my time, I'm far from it. I would love to know that I can take things slowly, stop and smell the roses without feeling like I'm abdicating a responsibility to busyness. There's a tension that I have yet to resolve between the desire to be slow and the desire to maximize my time. Both are admirable pursuits. I don't want to rush life, but I do want to make the most of it. In some ways, I'm a naturally slow person. Left to my own devices, I think deliberately and create slowly. From a certain perspective, this feels natural and even enjoyable. From another, it feels like a terrible weakness that could deprive me of living a full life, or living up to my potential. I want to slow down and enjoy the journey of creating something like Catalyst of Control, perhaps even take pride in how long it's taken to craft. But that desire is counteracted by the pressures of capitalism, societal expectations, and my equally strong desire to be prolific. I envy writers who can pen multiple books in a year. I don't want to write a lot simply to have written a lot, but because I have so many ideas I can't wait to express and explore, to get down on the page and share with others. I have so many stories in my head that, at my current pace, I stand no chance of writing them all within a single lifetime. So I'm running out of time. We all are. The real question is, what can we do about it? From a scientific perspective, time tends to feel like it's speeding up as we get older because of a few distinct but related phenomena. For one, a decrease in novelty. The more new things we experience in a given year, the more unique memories we create, and the longer that year seems to us. When we're very young, almost everything we encounter is something novel, an opportunity for fresh neural pathways to form. Almost invariably, the older we get, the fewer truly new things we encounter. We're already familiar with so much. We often fall into patterns and routines that, while they may be practical and offer stability, don't provide us with new experiences. The more well-trodden the path, the faster it seems to pass by. A second reason time seems to speed up with age is simply mathematical. When you're 10 years old, a single year makes up 10% of your life. When you're 20, a year is 5% of your life. When you're 50, it's just 2%. A year feels like it passes more quickly because, measured against the sum of your experiences, it's a much smaller amount than it once was. Psychological factors also change our perception of time as we age. Adults, often by necessity, are less present-focused than their younger counterparts. Their emotional experience of life tends to be steadier, with fewer ups and downs. The emotional intensity of childhood and adolescence can make individual moments, and time as a whole, feel longer. So if you want to slow down your experience of time, what do? If time speeds up because of a lack of novelty, one of the most obvious ways to slow down time is to pursue new things. This doesn't have to look like traveling the world. It can be as simple as changing up your routines, taking a different route to a frequent destination, exploring areas near you that you aren't familiar with. It can mean changing the music you listen to, the kinds of books you read, or even the types of art and culture you engage with generally. It can mean being more spontaneous, or discovering new things by paying closer attention to what's already around you. The more novel the experience, the bigger the effect. A week of traveling to new places and meeting new people can feel far longer than an ordinary week, both in the moment and in retrospect. You're creating unique memories, likely documenting life more than usual, and living more in the present than on autopilot. It's not realistic, or even smart, to try to inject novelty into our lives all the time. Endlessly chasing new experiences isn't feasible for most, and even when it is, it's not inherently fulfilling. But intentionally seeking novelty when we can is one of the most effective ways of slowing down our subjective experience of life. We can also reframe the very way we think about time. In his book, 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, essayist Oliver Burkeman proposes looking at our lifespans not as short, but as miraculously extant to begin with. Statistically speaking, the chances of existing rather than not existing, especially as a conscious being with a life of any substantial length, are infinitesimally small. The fact that we're here at all, able to experience time and do something with it, is something of a miracle. Sure, we could complain all day about how woefully short human lifespans are, how we don't have enough time to do everything we want, but what good does that do us? If we can change the lens through which we view time from one of scarcity to one of gratitude, we can begin to accept with grace the limits of our lives, and in so doing, find certain freedom. Technology and productivity culture are no help in the pursuit of this freedom. Largely thanks to them, we like to believe we can have total control over our time. We plan our futures, we schedule our days, we try time-saving hacks and systems. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of these things. The pursuit of maximizing productivity, applying our brains and machines to getting the most out of our time, most often comes from a good place. But if we hold too strongly onto the notion that time is ours to command, we're fooling ourselves. Time is no more in our control than gravity. We can learn how it works, work within its constraints, make use of it. But at the end of the day, the only control we have over time is how we choose to see it. One of the things I love about fiction is that it's a way of playing with time, stretching it, bridging it, inverting it. Fiction can be a window into the past, or the future, or an alternate present. It can allow us to experience time differently, to jump years and paragraphs, to live a lifetime in just a few hundred pages. Maybe that's one of the things that draws me to writing. It's a way of getting more out of life. It's not all about escapism. I think fiction, both the writing and the reading of it, can be a way of coming to terms with time, understanding it from a new angle, accepting and even embracing its power over us. Yes, our time is limited and running shorter every day, but we have these tools, these capacities at our disposal to turn time into a playing field. Stories are time multipliers. Not literally, of course, but through stories we can experience more in less time. An artist puts their soul, their time, into a narrative, and for just a moment, they share it with us, and we escape ourselves. We escape time, or rather, it seems to flow differently. 2 hours spent scrolling social media can feel like 10 minutes. It's vapid, it's meaningless, it makes time slip past faster. 2 hours invested in a masterful film or book can feel like 10 hours. You find yourself invested, losing yourself in the story, coming out of it with a changed perspective on life. Our experience of time is incredibly subjective. It can be revealing to examine just how our perception of time changes depending on what we're doing. Some actions speed up time, others slow it down. By simply exchanging a hollow experience like doom scrolling with a rich experience like reading a novel, we can expand and deepen our experience of time. It's not just reading that changes our perception of time. I know I'm biased as a writer, but I cannot recommend highly enough having some sort of writing practice in your life, especially if you're young. Memory is a fickle thing. Photos and videos can offer a glimpse of the past, but not necessarily into a past state of mind. Writing, on the other hand, can transport you into the imagination and point of view of your former self. When I read stories and journal entries from when I was young, it's almost like I'm there again. I can see these characters and worlds the way I did when I first created them. I can recognize the thoughts, the dreams, the fears and hopes of the person I once was. There's nothing quite like it. Finding novelty, reframing the way we think about time, experiencing art, writing stories, documenting our lives, these are all tools we can use to alter our subjective experience of time, but they don't provide answers. How much time do we have left? And what's the best way to spend that time? These are questions people have been wrestling with for millennia. Now, entering my 20s, I know I'm running out of time. I always have been. But I'm learning to be okay with that, to accept the unknowability of that countdown, to see the beauty in the mystery. I wish I could end this by giving you all the answers, or at least having found answers for myself. Time is unknowable, perhaps. We each have our own relationship with it, with the past, the present, the future. The truth is that as much as we may think of ourselves as victims of time, passive passengers on a future-bound train, that's a fiction we tell ourselves. Time is ours to make the most of, if only for a short while. Every fleeting moment we get is an opportunity to pay closer attention, to try something new, to pick up the pen and write another line in the story of our lives. If we choose to, we can see that we're not running out of time. We're running into time. Taking flight out of the past, taking action in an ever-evolving present, taking steps into a future we have a hand in shaping. But what do I know? I'm only 20. Give me time.